Hello, Lobos. Bienvenidos a todos. Thank you for tuning in to Lobo Lenguas, a podcast on behalf of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This podcast hopes to be a safe forum where we hold candid conversations that cover a variety of topics to engage our listeners into discovering the wide range of diversity that we have at Sul Ross State University and in West Texas. My name is Melissa Montoya. I am an English graduate student and one of your hosts today. For this episode, we are collaborating with DAE, the Disability Awareness and Education Committee. Today's podcast will highlight white cane awareness. Today, I am sitting here with Mary, Oscar, and Aziz. Mary is our Director of Counseling and Accessibility. She's a member of DEI, and she's the coordinator of the Disability Education and Awareness Committee. We also have Oscar Lozoya, who is a vocational rehab counselor with Texas Workforce Commission, and Aziz Afravi. Did I pronounce that correct, Aziz Afravi? Who is a vocational rehabilitation counselor with Texas Workforce Commission. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to have kind of like an open table discussion about some questions that we have students and really just the general population concerning blind and visually impaired persons, and just to like dispel a lot of the stigmas that we may have. So thank you so much for coming in and taking the time to answer our questions. And feel free to correct me if I say something wrong, because I'm still learning, and that's the whole point of this podcast, right? Is to listen and to learn. So can y'all tell us a little about yourselves, Oscar and Aziz? How long have you worked for TWC, and what is your role there?
Okay, I'll start. My name is Oscar Lozoya. I have been with this agency for 10 years, and I work with transition students from people from 14 to 22 years old. And what I do is I help them completing their high school and then going to college for those who wants to pursue that pathway, or to finding a job for those who want to work right after high school.
Okay, thank you. My name is Aziz Afravi. I'm a vocational rehab counselor with the Texas Workforce Office, as working with the adult from age of 18 or graduating from high school all the way up, related to the employment. Of course, the client or customers, when they want to go directly to the employment, or they need certification, college degree, or they need treatment, visual treatment or anything, or trainings requires for them to get to their achieving their goal as an employment. So they have a budget for every customer, how they want to pursue with their goal. So that's what we take care of. As long as we pay for employment, even so we can help them to find a job.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So as we kind of jump in here with more of our questions about white cane awareness and educating our student population and our Sul Ross community, one of the questions that came up when Melissa and I were sort of brainstorming about this is we were curious about your perspective on the media's narrative around blindness or being blind for persons who are blind and or visually impaired. And we were both kind of intrigued by how sometimes there can be what we were thinking about is sort of like a superhero slant to someone who is blind as a possible misnomer. We were just kind of curious what you think about that. And by superhero slant, we were talking about it like, some people sort of assume that an individual who's blind, maybe they have a sixth sense, or, they have, something like this, that we were just wondering if you could share a little bit about your thoughts around that.
Go ahead, Aziz.
Go ahead, I don't mind.
I'm sorry, what was
I
that?
said, go ahead, I don't mind asking.
Okay, go ahead, Aziz.
Oh, I thought Oscar wanted to do it, that's what I said.
¿Qué pasa?
If he wants to, I don't mind. Okay. Uh, you want to do it? Okay.
Okay.
In my perspective, I would see,
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
You're good. I think Oscar
Okay.
stepped away from his desk for just a minute, so.
Okay. In my perspective, I can see, as a blind person, the society, I am alive. I'm alive. I can observe people, whether I'm sighted or blind. As you know, each sighted person has a different perspective on their societies. So a different way they see the world. Myself, I see the blind people the same thing. We can look at, in some areas, in more, you can say, busier areas, we get the less observation, is more quiet, more observation. Depend always where we at, how noisy it is, how much crowd it is, and depend our mood is it. So we will get observations to know our society, and or I can say our surrounding, to live our life.
Thank you for that.
Okay. First, my apologies because someone was anxiously knocking on my door, so I have to open it. But well, going back to the question was about the media's perspective on this case on blindness, right?
That's right.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, we can see this thing from many points of view. I would mention just two. I would say that the media always is looking for something out of the normal, something unusual, and they put us on kind of on the spot, but they utilize people with disabilities in general to make them to see different than the rest of the population, and that's the hero image that they portray comes from that intention of them to find something out of the normal and present it to the population. And the other reason I will mention is that it's a way to overcompensate, because people with disabilities for many years have been put down in many ways, socially, culturally, and now things are moving to the other extreme. I mean, sometimes we are no longer down, but we are all the way up there. So I think this is a movement towards the middle. I don't know when it will come, but hopefully it will come soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I understand what you're saying when you say to the middle. That's a good way to describe it. So as a, I'm sorry, let me get my notes here. As a person with sight myself, I can list challenges that I might face when I'm in group settings and social settings. But for me personally, for example, my anxiety goes through the roof, and then my thoughts start spiraling out of control. But what are some challenges uh, that y'all might face in group settings that maybe you could explain or can maybe dispel some myths about surrounding that? I know, Aziz, that you mentioned, as a reminder, like you are regular people, you're humans, you're not like this superhero, how Mary was saying. And I think that sometimes people have a lot of questions about what might happen in social settings for y'all. I guess anybody could take the question.
Well, I'll take that one. For me, the biggest challenge is to not perceive the people's body language, and not only the face but the whole body. And because I noticed that sighted person, sighted people communicate, use this language a lot, and I feel like I am losing a very important thing uh, when in that group setting. For example, in a in a lunch meeting, or in just a social meeting, people. I mean, I can hear, and I am used to listen deeply and hear the person's take a lot of information out of the person's voice.
Mm.
But if the person stops talking and they just make a gesture or something, that is not so easy for me to get. I sometimes get it. Sometimes I don't.
That is true. I said it. Sometimes we observe some body languages, some we don't. And even so, if you look at it, and normally sighted person has a problem too. So it is normal. To me, I don't expect myself to get everything. But in any social group, wants to be in a classroom, wants to be in a lunch, wants to be in a party, of course, your observations are different. So as I mentioned, you are in a party earlier, and the noise, how much will affect you to observe your surrounding. If you are in the quieter areas, how big is the area? We get observed. As I mentioned, we are live. We can get information. I know people, they go around, people, they walk, they smile, and you know it with the tone of voice, you know it with how the person is standing, and quite a bit we can get observation in a group. To me, is again, always depend on the person, is it? If you don't pay attention, sometimes, let me go back to what I was saying. Sometimes we don't pay attention, even so verbally when they're telling us something, we don't pay attention. So I'm sorry, but that's it's not blamed on the person with their English language. No, because they're not a good listener.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not a good listener. But that's why they don't pay attention. Here's the same thing. If I don't grasp what's going on around me, it's me. It's not my blindness. Some things are blamed on blindness, but everything. We can be a normal person in a society, and as long as how people they accepting us, that is the most things we're looking at.
Yeah.
Remind me when I was in a college student, when I was in a classroom, and one time one professor asked me, "Hey, first day in the class, walking into, I told him I need a note taker. Then he said, somebody write the notes, and I take a copy of his or her note. Then he told me, who do you want to give it to? Can you see the student? And he looked at me, I stayed quiet. Then he said, that was a dumb question, wasn't it? Because your first time walking in a classroom, and I seen it 2 minutes, you walked in and you gave me that paper, you went to sit, and I expected you to know who was in the classroom. So you see, so it's dependent on the person's understanding, is it?
Yeah.
Much they understand what's going on, what questions to ask. And he was welcoming me into the society, into the classroom.
Yeah.
So then he said, okay, end of the class, I will ask that question from the students, because then you know who's in the classroom. Might be you know the students, might be the students will like your personality and will write give you a copy of your notes. So, it's all is on the person. I would blame it to the person. It's
Yeah.
not us. Thank you.
One thing that I'm getting curious about as you're talking there, Aziz, is I was thinking about a classroom setting or just groups in general, but when meeting someone for the first time, are there any sort of boundaries? We're going to kind of segue into a little bit more specifically about, walking in the white cane, but like, are there any boundaries when meeting someone for the first time that you might articulate or, say to someone like, please don't handle my cane if they maybe tried to do that for you?
Meeting a person for first time to me is depend what situation it is. Is it a business or is it a date or just a friend?
Okay.
It makes a lot of difference to me. When I go to meet businesses, employers, I will see the person realize person is stretching a hand to giving a handshake, or like when I go I remember when I was going for job interviews. How people they are giving your eye contact or you giving an eye contact to them. So it is important. It's very important to know how is the setting in that room or that person, their attitude. You will realize, when I'm talking to you, Mary, I know it. You are interested in my subject, or just you want to finish it up. Okay, I don't have time that much. You want to go on. So
Yeah.
we know it. But the sighted person, you give it a body language. To me, I figured it from your tone of voice, or you're moving around, playing with your paper or something. I
Right.
can't figure. It is an observation. That's what we do. If you ask it, do I need to know more? Like anybody else, yes. It's a good idea to know.
Thank you. And for you, Oscar, would you say, do you articulate any sort of boundaries when meeting someone for the first time? Are there things that you might say?
In general, I don't think for me there is the need to set boundaries at the very beginning of interpersonal interaction with someone who I'm just meeting him or her for the first time. What it happens to me very often is that people get surprised because they have never seen me. They don't expect that I will be a blind person. So they get surprised, for example, like my customers' parents or the teachers, because sometimes I have talked over the phone with these people for a while after, and then we end up meeting in person. So I guess they get surprised in a positive way, and they like that, they accept that. When I think when I need to set boundaries is when they offer me, or sometimes they try to impose their help on me. They
Ah,
make the assumption that I need help.
I see.
that's when I have to, yeah, and it has happened to me that people trying to guide me, they take my cane and they hold off my cane and move it around and then I say they stop. I mean, if you want to guide me, we will not get it that way because
Okay.
I mean, and then I try to to teach them. Hey, I'll take your arm, you walk in front of me, and that's it. That's a very short instruction, and they get it, and just we move on.
Okay. So you try to teach them. It's a teachable moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can go back with that. Sometimes, to me, my personality, sometimes it's not the time to teach them, you know. I let them in the halfway of the road when I keep going with them. And then I would tell them, hey, you don't mind if I grab your arm instead of you putting my cane. You know, the person, depend how we approach them, depend how we approach them. So I see it, you know, sometimes it's too soon for them, sometimes it's a traffic light. The light changed and they want to go and they grab it. I say, wait. And in the halfway, when I get closer to them, I tell them, then when I grab your arm, already I'm grabbing your arm already, you know. I said, oh, that's easier. I said, yeah. I said, okay. I'm sorry, I pulled the cane, then there's nothing wrong. So you see, to me is I don't push too far. I go with the flow. I roll with the flow, and I will try to find out what is the time to teach them the correct way to how.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess that would also kind of be a good segue into our next thought. Um, when speaking about aid, you know, technology, our laptops, our phones, even the remote, you know, you can speak into it to change the channel and everything. And technology has evolved in a way that I guess we would ask y'all, would you say that technology um, has helped y'all or has hindered y'all, or is there maybe some things that could need to continue to evolve? How has technology made life easier or harder?
Well, I think technology is useful for everybody. And that's the main purpose of technology, to make life easier for people to do tasks and complete tasks. In the case of in my case, for example, I accomplished a lot of good things academically because I had access to technology. So that was a crucial thing. I mean, to be able to read books, a lot of books, and I still read a lot of books because I have technology to convert print materials into Audible. I mean, that's crucial. I will have not be able to read all these books without that technology. So that's very important. I mean, the white cane by itself is a piece of technology that we use regularly. And I mean, we can travel the world with that. So yeah, technology is not the is not the solution for everything, because I mean the technology is there, but if I don't if I don't know how to use it, it's useless. So it's a very helpful tool, and but there are other factors besides the technology.
That is correct. Of course, technology, our lifestyles changing to advance in technology, but in blind and vision impaired, really they do rely on technology. Of course, myself, if I can see this job, what I'm doing, if I didn't have the technology, I would not be able to achieve myself like any other employees at work, to be working and uh, be supporting myself, whether it's at work, whether in a personal life. As Oscar said, you know, anything can is a called technology, whether it's just a basic white cane itself is a tool, is a technology, be using it. it is really, really, we do rely on ourselves, on the technology to get us going. If I didn't have the technology, I wouldn't be able to read my email, whether it reads to me, whether I read it on a computer, on the phone, anything. We do rely on the technology.
Yeah.
Give support strongly to it. Even so, our services is part of our services. We do offer in Texas Workforce to help our clients to learn to use the technology. If they didn't, when they lose their vision, they learn how to use it, and we put them back to the employment lifestyle, or back to the work.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Sometimes the technology can get so complex, but I think it's kind of like anything else. Once you start interacting with it, it becomes a little bit easier. I remember when I started working at the library, I had a patron who was blind, and he donated a Kurzweil reader, and it took me forever to figure out how to manipulate a Kurzweil reader. And he just came alongside and was like, just boop, 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 boop. And I was like, wow, thank you for the training. So, you know, we have to
Some tools are
interact.
complicated.
Say what?
Some tools are complicated.
Yes, there.
Technologies are, they need to learn how to use them. Yes.
Yes, lots of bells and whistles. Okay, so we're coming to the top of the hour and about the end of our time here. Just want to touch on myths in our culture. And I was curious, this last question here before we wrap up, if either of you could just say a few words about what do you think some of the myths might be, or dispelling myths around, you know, persons who are blind.
Well, for me, the most common myth that I hear is that people get very, very surprised when I tell them that I have a job, a permanent job, and that I have been working for 10 years. And people have even told me, and you really have a job? And what you do there? I mean, they don't, they really don't see that is possible for a blind person to be productive, to have a job, and to be able to do a job. That's the most common. And the other one is if I am in the black world, and that I don't see any at all. They assume that I don't see not even light. And those two are the most common for me.
What about for you, Aziz? Any myths?
And what I see, yes, that's true. The society has changed, is changing, but it's not the way I want it, but it has changed a lot. As Oscar said it, you know, it's employment, you know, we can do things. Oh, can you work? Wow. What the heck can you do? Yeah, they do say that. And you'd be surprised, directly they do say it. Or they say, can you eat? Oh, I thought so. Otherwise, all my life I've been eating, otherwise I wouldn't be alive, you know. So we do ask a silly, or can say, questions which person later on they think about it. Oh, that question was not a good question, you know. But some people just they do ask, and they don't realize how much they can hurt somebody. But yes, it has changed, and I can put in, if we, blind and vision, would not go to the society and won't introduce themselves, people would not know how to interact with them. People don't understand. When they talk to me, it's like, oh, did you hear the movie? Yeah, no. Why you changing English language? Did you watch a movie? Don't say here, watch. I'm alive. I'm a person too. I watched a movie. Sometimes you're watching a movie without looking at it. So you have a right, and I have a right too. So we need to teach the society, and people won't learn to be with them, interact with them, and they will see we don't bite and we're not a disease.
Okay, thank you so much. Before we start to wrap, Melissa's going to wrap up here for us. Is there any advice that you would give to our Sol Ross community?
Well, I will give to people the advice to stop making assumptions about anybody pretty much, but in this case about people with disabilities. And instead of making assumptions, go ahead and ask in a very respectful manner to the person. I mean, for example, start making the assumption that the person needs help instead of asking, hey, do you need help? In whatever the response is, to accept that. I mean, if it is yes, go ahead and provide the help. And if it is no, just accept that and keep going. I mean, nothing happens. So
Thank you.
that's my advice.
Thank you. Aziz?
As Oscar said it again, as he said it perfectly, ask question, nothing wrong. We don't hurt people. I know some of us, we can't people who don't answer the questions, but ask question and realize we are somebody too. We are like anybody else. We doing it with the different ways, different method. We do things. If I walk with a cane, I use a public transportation. You drive it. Maybe you ride a bicycle. I can ride a bicycle, but I do a different method to get to my destination. You use a computer, I use it too. I use it with special program. You use it with your eyes. So each one of us will be using a different tools. So I can say we are welcome to, like anybody else. Any other disability is welcome, and they can do things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. I think that, we were talking about technology earlier, and luckily things like this, like Zoom or podcasts, will help us to, spread awareness, get the word out, and make this a subject that, we can talk about and we can bring to the middle, as Oscar stated earlier. Thank y'all so much for tuning in today. Counseling and accessibility services offices is in Ferguson Hall 112 if you want to reach out and talk about anything that we discussed today. Also, as a reminder, if you are in need of any food services, we have Lobo Pantry at Sol Ross, and they are in Ferguson Hall, room 108, or you could call 432-837-8596. And you can also email ODEI, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, to suggest any topics that you'd like to discuss or anybody that you'd like to submit to participate in our podcast. Oscar, Aziz, thank you so much for giving us your time. And Mary, thank you so much for collabing with me on this. It takes, people like y'all to say, yeah, let's sit down and talk about it, just like an open discussion, and not make students feel like, well, can I ask questions? I think sometimes we're scared to just even ask the question. But things like this definitely help. Thank y'all so much. And Lobos, keep howling because your voice matters.
Thank you. Bye.